Early in life, Brad Dubs was exposed to some of the best trumpet instructors in New Mexico. Through hard work and determination, he soon became a great trumpet player and a respected music educator. Come and enjoy this wonderful conversation. Brad Dubs is next on OTP.
All right. Good morning, Brad. How you doing?
Good. How are you, Mark?
I'm doing well, man. It's so good. I try to get some brass sound back there on the intro for you.
That's okay. That works. I loved it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being our first episode for OTP on the podium for the new year 2024. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's always a pleasure to chat with you, Mark.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. All right, let's dive right in. I always start with everyone about how they came to music, how they came to the instrument. What instrument do you play, and how did this all start?
I play trumpet, and when I was in the fourth grade, our good friend Kent Erickson was going around to classrooms and whatnot, and of course not demonstrating everything. I think he was probably just talking about joining band, and
okay.
And as you know, he's a trumpet player and played something, and it just kind of lit the fire for me. And it's funny because I was thinking about this. We went out to dinner last night, and I bump into Randy Jaramillo, who, of course, you know the Jaramillo family. And I told him that I was going to meet with you today and be doing this. And in addition to Kent, starting that flame right there, in the interest of trumpet, I would go to my sister's concerts. She was in the band with Kent, and Randy was playing, of course, and he played some solo with the jazz band, and I just kind of fell in love with it right there.
That brings a question to me. Did you fall in love with the sound of the trumpet or the way it looked? What was it? Can you put your finger on it?
Gosh, it's hard to remember.
You're not that old.
It's hard to remember what I did yesterday. It was probably the sound.
Yeah.
It just was very new to me, and I knew I wanted to give it a shot.
Well, I'll talk about that later, but let me bring it up now real quick. A former parent of mine about a week ago donated me a cornet. And, as I was just playing around with it and the tone and sound of it, I mean, our ears, all of us I've been talking to, have a sense of falling in with that timbre, the tone of the instrument that we end up playing. And so that resonated with you, yes?
It did, definitely. And the more I played and was exposed to things and took some private lessons, especially when I was in high school and I started hearing more and more recordings of jazz players, I was hooked. And you could pull me away. I know we might talk about this, but when I was taking those lessons with Kent in high school, one of the best things he would do is just lend me tapes or copy tapes of his for me, and then of course the CD players came out and then would lend me CDs and things like that. And man, I tell you, in addition to him lending me a bunch of the Doc Severinsen Tonight Show band recordings, I wore those things out. I just could not get enough of that. And a couple of the early recordings that I purchased myself were, of course, Louis Armstrong, and there was an Al Hirt recording that I got, and I just loved it.
That's interesting. You're right in line with my next question about Kent was feeding you. He was he was taking that spoon and feeding you the sound of it, so to speak. And talk about the private lessons, because the audience is, we have many different types of people that are listening and watching. How important was that to have those private lessons in those early times?
Well, it was good, and I took lessons from a handful of people in middle school. Pancho Romero, who is a local educator, as you know, he owned a store here in town. It was his family store, and there was a couple of guys from the symphony that I took lessons from. And looking back on it, I'm sure I didn't practice what I was supposed to practice. And well, I know I did. And I wish I could go back and do the things I was told. But even with, and with Kent, there was something about it that just made me click with music and with the instrument. You know, as a young kid, I was involved with other things as well, like most kids are. With I did Little League and I played video games and things like that, and tried to have. I watched massive amounts of TV, but something just kind of kept drawing me back to playing the trumpet. I feel like it was something I was getting good at. I fit in with those students, the other students in the program. So, thinking about all those things and the lessons as well, I just think it was a community that was tailored for my needs.
Yeah.
At the time.
Yeah. Does your mom and dad or sister play an instrument?
No,
your sister did.
Nobody was really musical. I have a few cousins that were involved with music, and my sister, although she was in the program, she didn't take it too seriously, as you probably know. But mom and dad were never, really musically inclined, but always supportive of the fact that this is something I liked and that I loved, and they're still supportive to this day.
Right.
They go to almost everything I'm playing at, and numerous band concerts, as you can imagine, with me conducting. So,
yes. What do you remember? At what point you're in high school now? You're taking lessons. You're, like you said, you're feeling like this is something you're getting better at. Do you remember at what point in your early part of your development that you felt like, I think I might like to go into this as a career or go forward with it and get serious?
Well, I was having so many positive experiences those first couple of years of high school with our band program. Gary Schaller was a band director of mine, and he's now a professor and a band director at Western Kentucky University. And I was just having so many amazing experiences that by the time I realized that my desire to possibly become an architect may not happen because of the fact that my math grades were in the toilet. I mean, it was bad. And I just thought, well, here's something that I think I might be good at. And I was having all these great experiences, and in addition to being in that program, our good friend Bruce Dalby, he would come in and help our group out, and I was really interested in everything he was doing at UNM, and I just basically those guys became my idols.
Yes,
and that was something that I knew I wanted to do. for the rest of my life.
Yeah, they became. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I guess I am. Maybe from teacher to mentor. And but let me ask you, beg the question here that if you had not been playing as well as you were, do you think you would have still gone in that direction? I mean, you were playing, you were a good player. If you were struggling, do you think you would have said, "Oh, I think I'll let this go"? I mean, hypothetically, I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know, and I wouldn't put myself in that category back then as a great player.
yeah,
I tried to be as good as I could, and I had so many friends at the time, and in different band programs that were involved in music, and we kind of fed off of each other's musical ideas and interests, and so it's hard to say whether or not the career path would have been different if the skill level maybe weren't where it was at the time. But I do think I have to mention that those friends of mine were such a massive influence on me.
yes,
Some of those you probably know.
yeah, yeah. We all know as educators that when you have your friends have a huge impact on how we all go, whether it's negative or positive. So,
Yeah.
okay, so now you're coming out of high school. You got to make a decision. You said architect wasn't a good idea with the math and everything. So, what college did you end up going to?
Well, I went to the University of New Mexico. Going through high school, I had heard stories of the great North Texas band program, and especially the 1 O'Clock Lab band. And
Yes.
in two things, just in having some conversations, I think with some directors and educators, and then also coming to the realization that my parents weren't made out of money. I was going to probably need to stay pretty close, which is fine. At the time, I know New Mexico State also had shown an interest in my playing and my interest in music, but I did have a lot of connections at UNM, and so I ended up going to UNM and had an amazing experience.
Great. That's great. Did you, at this point, know that you wanted to go into music education or just performance or jazz instruction? How did that work?
No, I was pretty dead set on doing music education. Again, having those experiences that I had, and wanting to, I guess, offer those experiences to students was something I was always interested in. I enjoyed playing. There was I think jazz was probably a stronger suited genre for me in terms of playing, and then of course I started figuring out how to play high notes on the trumpet, and man, that was so much fun being in all the groups at UNM doing that. But I was still in the classical ensembles as well, but all along the way I did have this focus of being a music educator, and all of my teachers down there at the time, who I consider some of my closest mentors, helped guide me down that path in the things I needed to learn. My band director, Eric Rombach Kendall, he really paved the way for a lot of people in the sense that he understood the path in which some students wanted to go. He knew that not everybody was going to go on and get a master's and a doctorate or try out for the president's own Marine band or an orchestra or something like that. But he did know that some of us wanted to be educators, and we did have those options and possibilities, I should say, of getting up on the podium in rehearsals. He and Glenn Atzid both did that, and would help us with conducting styles and problem solving. What present hypothetical educational situations for us, and then see at the time the way we would react, and then offer suggestions.
Right.
Bruce Dalby and Glenn Coster were extremely instrumental in that as well. I can't thank them enough for what they did.
Absolutely. Yeah. I made a note here. I wanted to go back before we dive into the education side of it. You talked about you navigated toward the jazz side of the music, and I find that really interesting. As I've talked to so many of these musicians on the show, what takes us into this area on a certain type of music, which ultimately we end up, some of us, making career choices because of this. And goes back to a sax gentleman I talked to who was a classical saxophonist, but has gone into the Navy. You were really navigating toward that jazz area, but you were also playing the classical. Did you have a kind of a split personality? How did that work in your mind? Or were you thinking, I really need to learn more on the classical end? What was going through your mind at that time?
Yeah, I mean, I always kind of knew where my strengths and weaknesses are, and I still do, and I'm trying to continue to work on those to this day. In working with all the teachers that I had, Jeff Piper was my trumpet teacher, but I did at the time still take some lessons with some other people, because I was just trying to soak in everything that I could and make my basic skills on the instrument as strong as they could be. Work on all the classical material that everybody else was trying to do. It was obvious to me that I wasn't destined to go in an orchestra audition or something along those lines. I was just trying to get better on the instrument from every angle that I possibly could.
Right.
And I still have that fire to this day. I can't get enough practice time.
Yes.
And it's and it's fun because it helps me continue the journey of learning.
Boy, that's powerful, because you made me think of so many of us, or some of us, I would imagine, and I know I have gone through this. As I've gotten older, my practicing started to go down, and then it would come up and disappear, and that passion that you have and still continue to have, the flame has gone dimmed at times, and so that's a really wonderful thing to hear. Now you come out of UNM, and where did you start teaching at first?
Well, as I was finishing UNM, I had an experience of seeing a band program that came down to a local marching competition from Colorado, and it just blew everybody's mind.
What band? What band was it? I think I know.
This is Pomona High School.
Pomona, okay.
Yeah, and it's a little outside of Denver, in Arvada, and I mean, it was just jaw-dropping how crazy good they were. And in talking with one of my band directors at the time, Glenn Atzett, he did have some connections with the gentleman up there, and with a little bit of arm twisting to Bruce Dalby and some other people in the department, they allowed me to go do my student teaching up in Denver for about 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
So fast forward, I get past the student teaching part, and it gets time to that scary time to start applying for jobs. And I remember there was really there was maybe one job available in Albuquerque at the time.
Yeah.
And I ended up not getting that job. There was not even a lot of jobs available in the area at the time. At the time too, I was engaged to be married, and so I had some conversations with my now wife about places to look into moving, and I liked the Denver area. Again, there was not a lot of options open at that time up there, and in addition, one of the scary things too about that area at that time was that you were an instrumental music teacher. So some of those band directors, or a lot of them, were also the string teacher.
Right.
And that was not super appealing to me. It was, a little nerve wracking that I just didn't have a lot of those skills. So I took some, I did a job fair, I think, that was available up there, and Clark County School District, which is Las Vegas, Nevada, and I think it covers Laughlin as well. I went and did a general interview through them, and then down the road, several weeks later, after I had graduated, I got a call from a couple of those principals in that area, asking if I wanted to come out and do an interview. So a good friend of mine at the time, Brian Downey, was looking at that area as well. And so we went out and did some interviews, came back after the first one, and I had gotten a call for another interview. And shortly after I had accepted the chance to go out and interview for that second job, I was offered one of the first jobs. So, I mean, these offers kind of started coming in, and at the time, that area was just booming. So many jobs opening up, but the programs were enormous.
Yeah.
And so I made the jump and the decision to move out there.
What year was this about?
With my fiance, this was the fall of 1998. And I started at a middle school, it was 6 through 8. The school itself was over 2,000 kids, and the band program was over 300. And I remember the principal asking me at the time in the interview, just to see if I was nervous about that, if I had any reservations about it. I had no idea. I was so cocky and confident about the ability to do this, and man, so I didn't shy away from the opportunity, but boy, it hit me so hard in the face, teaching that many students.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
I'm laughing because all of us that we have been in that situation know the feeling when first that bell rings, the kids come into the band room. There's organized chaos going on. You come out, and especially they're getting to know you. You're seeing these faces. You get on the podium. We've all been, and it's like, boom.
Yeah. It was overwhelming. Honestly, a lot of days. And if it weren't for, I had a mentor teacher out there who had taught for many, many years, and I would go to his school
Mhm.
after my day was done and basically tell him all my woes. Probably cry sometimes. I mean, it
Yeah.
is I think teaching in general that first year, regardless of what
Yes.
you teach,
Yes.
such a smack in the face
Yeah.
coming out of college. You know, my biggest advice I would give, um, that I still give so many students that are in college, is just to try to get in classrooms as much as possible.
Right.
I mean, all of that book work and that theory stuff, and you know, teaching
Yeah.
pedagogy is it's important, but
Right.
there's nothing like being with the students and being able to relate with students and
Mhm.
knowing what to expect. You know, here I'm coming from these very serious, intense rehearsals in college, but
Right.
it did not prepare me for what it's like teaching beginning band.
The real world.
You know, and I
Yeah.
had at that time I had I had like 150 beginners spread in three different classes,
I know.
and it it's indescribable how challenging it was. I mean, you know, but
Yeah. Yeah.
for anybody who's never been through it, it's
Yeah. I
crazy.
I'll share this one thing. My first year, I'm in front of the beginning band, and there's about close to 70 some odd sixth graders with instruments down in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And anyway, uh, I didn't know what I was doing. And you talk about the orchestra. When I got the gig, they said, "Well, we need you to teach orchestra for the first 3 4 months." And I took my sax into the to the room there, but yeah, you're asked to do all of this stuff, and until you find your way, and it takes a while. Like you said, any subject matter, to find who you are as a teacher, and I think probably being honest with yourself, like you were talking about, finding a mentor. For me, when you mentioned that, um, the gentleman in Florida, Steve Smiley, not Steve Smiley, that was here in Albuquerque, Fred Schmidt. He was the guy that we teamed up with. But also when I got here was Bruce Dalby. And I learned so much from him, just being able to, it was almost like a second student teaching experience for me to be his assistant at Manzano High School. So,
Yeah, I feel like every year I you learn more and more, right?
yeah,
It's like playing an instrument. But with teaching, you're learning more about like the decisions you made in previous years and what went well and what you
yeah,
screwed up on and those types of things.
yeah.
But I got to say, in those early years too, one of the biggest things that was really changed the way I taught was after we had our kid. It it was it right there, and
That's it.
then after being a parent,
Yep.
that it's not just you're not just teaching students,
Right.
but you're teaching somebody's child.
Well, how many times have I said that to Jarrett, our own son, and Justin? It made me a better teacher, and a better person than when I became a father. That's for sure, a parent. So you're up there, and how long did you stay at Panoma?
I was at Pomona student teaching for about 4.5 months.
Okay.
I graduated from UNM in May of '98. I moved out to Las Vegas, Nevada. I think on can't believe I can remember this. I think it was July 1st of '98, and we moved back from Las Vegas, Nevada on July 21st. What did I say? July 21st?
Yeah.
It was a year to the day we moved back to Albuquerque.
Wow.
So
There you go.
And a number of reasons. Are very close to our families. So we wanted to be back near them. My father-in-law at the time was very, very ill, and of course we wanted to be close to him. But just in general, we felt like this was home, and never regretted for one bit.
Yeah.
In making that decision. So I came back here, and I was fortunate to get a job at my at the school I went to middle school at Jackson Middle School, and I taught there for 2 years, and continued the journey there.
Do you like middle school or high school better? Which one do you prefer?
Well, a bunch of people have asked me because, as you know, I recently made this decision that this school year to go back to middle school. And as I was teaching high school and having great experiences, ups and downs, but overall, I was really enjoying what I was doing. I think somebody had asked me that, or a couple people over the years, if I had liked both. I had never really disliked teaching middle school. It's just I initially left middle school because I did have the itch to try to, do the band director thing at a high school level. Marching band? I was all about wanting to do that and just kind of have that overall well-rounded program that I knew from all my experiences. So to answer your question, I like both. Right. But as you know, there are some aspects of the job itself that I like now better than others at this stage of my life. Sure. But kids are kids, and and you just your responsibilities in what you're teaching them at different stages of their growth is it's different, and you just have to be prepared to help them through those stages.
Yeah, we're talking to Brad Dubbs, musician and band director here in Albuquerque. I remember when you came to Jackson, and then when you went to Manzano High School and started doing your job there. And
well, I had a stop before there. I was an assistant band director at Rio Rancho High School.
That's right. That's right? I remember. Okay, isn't that where you brought Maynard Ferguson it too?
We do. Yeah, I kind of started this. Went down this rabbit hole of bringing in guest artists and whatnot. So we had Maynard Ferguson and his band as a guest out there.
That was great.
The year after that, we had the Count Basie Orchestra.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, teaching out there with a gentleman named Kurt Schmidt was one of the absolute best things for my career, because I think we made a good team, and I just learned a lot from him, not only about teaching, but how to be a good person.
Yeah, right on. Yeah. Right on. So now, at this time, parallel, what's happening with your playing? You playing locally in town or what?
So when I graduated high school, I was asked to do a gig with the Albuquerque Jazz Orchestra, which is a local big band that a lot of my mentors I had when I was a kid were playing in. Again, Kent and Bruce Dalby and Bruce Crokin. Who Bruce was my last high school band director that I had. And boy, when they asked me to play this gig, I was like, oh my gosh, I mean, it's hard to even, it's hard to describe how excited I was to have that opportunity. But but they continued to ask me to play, and eventually I became a regular member of that band. It's hard to believe now that I've been playing with that group now for 31 years or something. And of course, one of your former guests, John Sanks, he was in the band too. And throughout college, I was playing, Easter gigs at churches and things like that. Yeah. And but as I was teaching here in town and playing with those people, I did have some other opportunities that came up. With when local artists would come through to casinos and things like that. I got a call, and been really fortunate to play with some of those people, and then play a couple of the musicals at the local very large concert hall here we have here in Albuquerque, Pope Joy Hall. The tricky thing was, and still is with all of that, is you have a regular job, and you have your daily life of like
family.
Yeah, family. We gotta do this around the house. We gotta do that, and the kids are growing up and stuff. But the challenging thing is keeping chops in shape.
Yes.
So I was trying to practice on the side as much as I could, or just maintenance, pretty much.
Right. I love that. I love that term. Maintenance.
It wasn't really like I wasn't breaking any new ground as an improviser and things, but I was just trying to keep my chops at a decent level.
Boy, you hit a nerve with me on that, because as my career started going, that's where my career faltered. I just did not keep the maintenance up.
Yeah.
And I think that's easy to do when you're playing middle school music and so forth. I could feel, and family, I could feel the skills starting to leave me at times. So, I want to talk a little bit about your developing of your bands, because I think audience, people get on the podium and it sort of looks from the outside as a musician, and maybe as an audience member, you're just up there waving a hand and it all comes together. Especially students. Oh, well, they should know how to read the music. But can you give some of the ingredients that you need to know when you get on that podium as a music educator to make this downbeat happen at the concert?
One of the things I've always thought is that just because somebody's a good musician doesn't mean that they're destined to find their passion or their goal, their place in life as a band director or an orchestra director or whatever. So having said that, I think that whoever is on the podium does have to be a good musician.
Sure.
And they have to have those skills, but getting kids to play, I have like a recording in my head of whatever piece we're playing, like a professional recording. And I tell this to kids all the time, and I'm trying to relay what I'm hearing to them, and then to get that out of them on their instrument. And I think, I don't know when it was, but just trying to catch as many details as possible of what you're hearing is just so extremely important. I mean, I've always wanted my bands to sound like the band on the recording.
Right.
And we're all humans, and I tell them we're all gonna make mistakes and things like that. Right. But I just want to be as detail oriented as possible with the kids when I'm on the podium.
Yeah, that's such a great way of putting it, details, because as we all know, we've all been kids at that time. A lot of kids aren't worried about details. Maybe don't even know how to spell the word. I know I didn't at the time. So having a director to guide you about when you're doing something at any chore, whether it's your homework, playing an instrument, playing football, what have you, details matter. You got to turn the electricity off before you start working. The details matter.
It's true.
Yeah. So that's a very good point. So I want to get back to your professional playing there in AJO. You talked about playing. We have a clip here of you guys playing. Can you set that up for us?
For a number of years, we were playing at a local restaurant here in town called the Cooperage, and it was such a great opportunity for the band to play on a regular basis. We had only, prior to that time, had been playing a handful of times throughout the year, and then to finally have a place to play on a regular basis was a treat. When COVID happened, unfortunately, the Cooperage shut down. So now we're at a different restaurant or bar, I should say, playing. But I just love playing with that group in general. I guess sometimes my roles in that group change, mm-hmm. and often I will play some lead trumpet, and sometimes I'll take solos and things like that. Sometimes I'm just playing a section part. So I think this clip in general is one of the times. So it's just a small part of a tune we were playing. I think that the tune's featuring Lee Taylor, who you know pretty well, yeah. Saxophone player. So this is Widow's Walk, I think.
Oh, okay. Let's take a look. Oh man, I love it. You're screaming like that. First of all, I'm just playing a B-flat concert on the cornet this week, and I had this conversation with the trumpet guys sitting behind me at rehearsal last Tuesday. And Dolby talked about this in the podcast. I think it was on microphone, but I play sax. We have a reed. But what you guys do with your lip is just a minor miracle, insane, or you guys are saints. I mean, talk about that. What physicality for those that don't play an instrument on trumpet, what does it take?
I mean, playing a brass instrument in general is it's a tasking activity. It takes, of course, practice, but it takes, being smart and efficient with what you're doing with your air and flexibility, just endless amount of hours to hone those types of skills. And I tell you what, I wish I had it figured out, but God, I'm just constantly every day trying to figure out how to do it and make it easier. And trumpet in particular, and Dolby will say this, and maybe he did, it's a beast.
Yeah.
even when you treat it right, it'll turn on you. You can sweet talk it all you want and warm down and stuff. Just some days it just doesn't want to work. Well, at least for me.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find out, of course, from all those professional players, what they do to make it easier for them.
It does cross over when you're playing sax or violin, these other things. The elements, there are those elements that cross over. We never reach that area of perfection on our instrument. You're always trying to get better and find that one trick that someone has, like for sax manipulation, different changes of the fingerings, just getting the combinations right, but also the dexterity. So those, I've had so many people ask that don't play an instrument, what is the easiest instrument to play? And my answer back has always been, well, the best way to answer that is, what is the easiest instrument to play wrong? And usually a lot of times, it goes to me, the saxophone and the drums, because a lot of people think, oh, well, I just put that reed on there and blow. Trumpet and brass instruments, like you talked about, man, you put that up. A lot of people, you get that in there and you're like, no, just can't, because immediately you just air, But yeah, once you go into the fact of trying to play and teach that instrument, you realize, wow, these guys. Well, I don't know. What do you think about the double reeds? That's a totally different animal.
Yeah, don't get me started. I don't know if I even want to talk about that right now. But again, with the brass players, I tell my woodwind students that you get tired playing flute and clarinet and saxophone.
Yeah, absolutely.
You get tired here in your embouchure and
right.
Your dexterity and your brain just thinking about stuff. But the brass, in addition to getting tired here, we're pushing the metal on our face, and that's just another element, And I think every instrument, though, like you said with percussion, I've known percussionists just to have to stop playing because of developing either tendonitis or what it might be,
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing once you see what people are doing with all the different instruments. Before I let you go, talk about to the audience about your relationship with your trumpet and the music and how it feels and how it has helped you through your life. We all have that connection. Why in the world do we do this, Brad? Why do you put yourself through what you just talked about with the trumpet and the practicing? What is it about the music that has played in your life?
I don't know. I think the biggest thing is that everybody's got to find something that soothes their soul, so to speak.
Yeah, right on.
Is healing to them, provides them some sort of comfort and passion for something. Right. I love to share with audiences and things like that as much as any other musician. I love to share with students, with being a teacher, but personally with the trumpet. It's just something I can always come back to that I know I can still work on skills. It's a challenge. It feeds my life with a lot of emotion.
Right.
I don't know if I'm explaining it very well, but
no, I feel you.
It is a hard. It's sort of hard question to answer, but I just it's the one thing that I really want to keep improving on, and that I find a lot of healing with.
Yes. That's a good word. I love that word of healing. I'm a spiritual person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm going to be out there, right? And the soul, we all have to get fed. We eat in the morning. And I believe that all of us, any human being on this earth, we have all this in common. We want to be loved. We want to have a connection. And for you, and I feel the same way. I've had this love-hate relationship with my saxophone since day one. When I didn't want to play it, but then I had to go back to it. And some people, you're right, find it with something else. Could be sewing, could be swimming, sports, whatever.
Right.
But say something about this, Brad, because we're all getting up there in age. God bless Ron Lipka. Brothers and sisters that have left us. You can play till you leave this earth.
Sure. Yeah, no, I agree. I admired Ron so much.
Yeah, man.
He played to the end.
Yeah.
And Doc Severinsen. Well, Doc is still alive and going, but professionally, he sort of officially retired from playing. I'm sure he's got to be still getting his face on the horn at some point.
Yeah.
It's going to be something that I think it's something that sticks with you. Music sticks with you, and it's the one constant I think that so many people can have in their lives, and and a great way we can all communicate with each other.
Right on. Well, that's a great way to put a bow on it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for doing this, Brad. I've enjoyed it. We've known each other for a long time.
Mark, I can't thank you enough, and I applaud everything that you continue to do since you retired teaching. I walked out of the room the other night, and I told Kim, I said, you still continue to be one of my favorite people in the world.
I'll put a check in the mail for you.
Okay. Thanks, man. I love you.
I love you too, man. Give a big hug to Kim for us. You're a wonderful family. Okay. And we want to thank all the people, audience listening and watching this podcast, OTP on the Podium with Brad Dubs. You hear him around Albuquerque, around the country, go by and listen to him. And find this podcast on all your podcast platforms. Until next time, keep playing the right notes.
You've been listening to The Podium. If you would like to be a guest on The Podium, email the show at onthe2@gmail.com. That's ONTHEPODIUMTOO @gmail.com.